Hey guys, Greg Knuckles here with stringtheory.com, and today we're talking about genetics and how much they impact muscle growth. There are two studies I want to look at. One is by Baman and colleagues, and the other is by Davidson. So the first one by Baman, what they did is they recruited 66 untrained people, put them on a pretty solid training program actually, looking at quad growth, and then they used a statistical technique called k-means clustering to divide them into three different groups. One group they termed non-responders, moderate responders, and extreme responders. But to call them non-responders is probably not entirely accurate. That doesn't mean that there's no way that their muscles could get bigger, just that they didn't respond to that particular training program. There were 66 people in the study, and the top 17 people were termed extreme responders. The moderate responder group, so roughly the middle 2/3 of participants, on average, their quads got increased in cross-sectional area by about 28%. The top sixth of people in terms of muscle growth, their quads on average got 58% larger, so slightly more than twice the growth of the modest responders. There's one guy, or I'm assuming it's a guy, who is almost an outlier among the extreme responders as well. So huge difference in response right there. They split them into two groups for analysis, roughly a 3 to 4-fold difference. With the top people in the high responders group, a couple people gained 6 kilos of lean mass in 12 weeks, and these were untrained people, recreationally active but not lifters. But that's first 3 months under the bar gaining like 13 and a half pounds of muscle. That's ridiculous. And the group average for the high responders was about 4 kilos of muscle, so closer to 9 pounds of muscle, whereas the low responders, I should have got the exact number, but it was closer to about 1.5 kilos of muscle. Going into it, on average, their muscles were basically the same size. They're like you wouldn't be able to tell the high responders from the low responders just by looking at them. It wasn't until they actually got under the bar that big differences in hypertrophy actually manifested themselves. But yeah, so in both of these studies, you had basically a bell curve in responses, which is what you would expect, because you're dealing with biological creatures. We tend to exist on bell curves. And you still got that big of a range in responses. So, when you're dealing with bell curves, the odds that you're dealing with someone who's truly a freak in sample sizes of 50, 60 people is pretty small. Let's say you're dealing with a sport like powerlifting, bodybuilding, several thousand competitors in both sports. Odds are extremely good that the people who do the best in those two sports are probably substantially more genetically endowed than the top people, even in those studies, who got results in 12, 16 weeks that were truly eye-popping. So, and then also some people really do just have a tough run of luck in terms of the hand that they were dealt. So, just because someone isn't super big, super strong, that doesn't mean that they aren't necessarily putting in the work and, getting everything out of it that they could be. Some people just weren't dealt a great hand. And then on the other hand, some people, it just seems like they can look at a weight and get bigger and stronger. The people who do have, a really poor hand they're playing, those were about 1/6 of the people in those two studies. Is you don't know how good of a hand you are dealt until you actually play it. You shouldn't start with assumptions that limit yourself. You shouldn't start with those self-limiting beliefs. If you're not expecting much, then that does give you kind of a security blanket. So then having high beliefs, high expectations about yourself, that is probably going to, actually impact your results in a positive way, pretty notably. So I wrote an article, a few articles about that, looking at some placebo research on steroids that I'll link in the description. But there's a much bigger spread than I think most people realize, and the fact that you don't know how good or how bad your genetics are until you actually train hard, put in the work, expect to get results, and then you may just surprise yourself. You may wind up disappointed, but you don't know until you try. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully it won't be 5 months until my next upload.